If anybody's been watching our shows, we've talked about on many occasions, touched on the fact that we've put a lot of more onus on album openers and album closers. And that is something that they knock out of the park here. We already kind of went more in detail with Never Enough, the title track opening up, how great of an opener that is. But I mentioned in passing how great of a closer Magic Man
Love
is
it.
as well. I think it's highly emotional. It ends on somewhat of a somber note, but it really captures the spirit and essence, and there's an ebb and flow from track to track, mood-wise. It's just a beautiful way to end this album.
I totally agree. I can't wait for you to see the film, especially when Magic Man plays. And then that is a perfect closer. Never Enough is a perfect opener. That's honestly how to sell a record to me. Yeah, how good is your opener and how good is your closer? How do you start and how do you finish?
Right.
Now, everything in between is important, but a great opener is and Never Enough just tells the story, opens you up to what's about to happen, and it feels like Magic Man is a not an ending, but it's just like this is where this is ended at the moment, or the ending of this story, of this chapter, or whatever.
As I was sitting and listening to it for the first playthrough, no skips, from start to finish last night when it dropped at 11 o'clock our time central, and I was listening to Magic Man, I was just trying to kind of close my eyes and visualize what comes to mind, things like that. I'm a big film buff and indie movie nerd, and my niches in particular, like sci-fi, horror, that type of stuff is typically what I lean toward, or like absurdist comedy type stuff. Magic Man, I had a little bit fun of just kind of visualizing, as you said, you're on the precipice or the ending or the edge of maybe like a universe or of something. So we'll say this body of work is their universe, and you're staring off into the unknown, and you don't necessarily know what's next. And I feel like it kind of conveys that feeling as a closing track, but you have a little moment to marinate in that, and as a lot of streamers do, if you're on a particular album and the album ends, it just starts it right back over. It was funny because, and I'm sure there's an intentionality to this, but I would assume, again, not seeing the movies, that might corroborate my theory here. I believe it's supposed to be waves, maybe, that you're hearing as that kind of ambient noise subtly, and that is at the end of Magic Man, but that is also how things start with Never Enough.
Absolutely,
So
you're exactly right. Our
it
way.
loops right back around on the album. And it was such a beautiful thing to actually hear. I had to, sit and write it out again another time straight through just because, Freaky Franz said, this is the most sonically responsible thing that we did. And you could take that and paint it in many different directions, but that comment, but from the perspective that point sells to me, outside of, we kind of characterized earlier, everybody kind of staying in their lane and know when to pop here, accentuate this, accentuate that, tastefully do this. Also, this band with intent laid out these tracks. They take you on a musical journey, vibe wise, musically. That to me excites me as a fan, as a listener, especially with 14 tracks. That's a difficult task to achieve, to perfectly place those tracks in an order that you're taking the listeners on a journey. It doesn't lose focus. While you might take your foot off the gas pedal in terms of intensity, it's still interesting in these other ways. Whether it's introspective ways, you got these ambient moments, you've got these EDM moments. These guys are throwing a lot of shit at you, and it's sticking.